Hello class and welcome to week 14 of History of Psych. As always, I would like to go over a couple announcements and important topics that we'll be covering this week in class. All right, so it is my honest hope that I will have all of your psychological disorder papers graded by Friday, the 16th. It takes me about 20-30 minutes to grade each one of them, and with 50 of you guys, it's just taking me a bit of time to work through them. As they've been coming in, I've been trying to get them done, but I promise to you that by Friday, April 16th, you will know your grade for your psychological disorder paper. Other than that, this week is definitely going to be more of a normal week. There's no exams. So just be sure that you're reading your chapter, watching any videos that I post, making sure that you complete your quiz, do your social bookmark for this week. It should be a pretty smooth sailing week for you guys. But as always, if you have any questions, any concerns whatsoever, I'm here for you. I'll be having office hours as usual, Monday and Wednesday from 10 to 11 if you need me. I've also been kind of getting questions about extra credit. Please just wait until probably finals week. That's when I'll be getting extra credit information from the clinic as well as from Sonar Research. So stay tuned on that front. All right, so when we kind of dive into important topics for this week in this chapter, I always think it's important to kind of start off with thinking, where are we in history? So this chapter really kind of focuses in on 1950 to 2000, primarily within the United States. So things that we need to kind of consider during this time period is going to be globalization. It was happening at a record speed during this time. The ideas and movements and knowledge, and people were able to start communicating with each other much quicker, much faster. Cultures are starting to blend together as well. When we start looking at things in relation to history, we always have to consider that psychology was not created in a vacuum. People were really reeling from the devastating effects that were World War II, especially in Europe. And on our kind of home front in the United States, we really have the start of the Cold War. So a clashing of ideas, of ideologies, of education. During this time period as well, we really do see the rise of the United States in the fields of education and science. So before World War II, kind of since the dawn of time, if you wanted to get an education, you would want to go to Europe, to ancient Greece, to ancient Rome, in order to learn, in order to get an education. But during this time period, this really changed. Europe in and of itself was really trying to deal with the devastating effects that World War II. And so the US had the infrastructure, had the money in order to increase education and science. So during this time period, it's also very interesting that we really have two new waves of psychology that are occurring. Keep in mind, Gestalt, behavioralism, psychoanalysis, all of that is still happening. But in and of itself, we also have two new schools or waves of psychological thinking. These two are going to be humanistic psychology as well as cognitive psychology. In my opinion, and in most opinions, I would say that these two branches are completely different from each other. So it is interesting that they're both kind of coming at the same time period. Humanistic psychology really focuses on an individual's free will, the holistic perspective, topics that are under this umbrella that is humanistic psychology includes positive psychology, if you've taken that course, person-centered therapy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A new wave of kind of therapeutic techniques are also kind of coming out of humanistic psychology as well. My assumption is that most of you have heard of humanistic psychology. Maybe it not be called that, but if you've taken positive psych, mental health services, any kind of topic that's related to counseling, you're going to be covering humanistic psychology. If you've ever heard of the phrase, you're in an existential crisis, existential psychology is also under this umbrella that is humanistic psychology as well. On the flip side of things, we really have the rise of cognitive psychology, what some have also dubbed the cognitive revolution. So before this time period, the focus of psychology was really at looking at behaviors, looking how people's behaviors have changed. What can we do to manipulate behaviors? With cognitive psychology, we're really trying to take a step back from that, and that we're not looking at behaviors. We're looking at somebody's cognitive abilities. So cognitive, things that encompass cognitive abilities and cognitive topics would include attention, language use, language development, memory, perception, problem solving, creativity, and thinking. This is really different than outward behaviors. So this is a huge difference when we're kind of comparing and contrasting the different waves that have come before this. Also within the realm of cognitive psychology would kind of be the rise of the machines in a way. So we really start to see an increase in brain scanning as part of psychological research, the use of computers, artificial intelligence also kind of falls into this category of cognitive psychology. I would say that still today, even though I know we said that it's 1950 to 2000, we are really still in this cognitive psychology wave as of right now. Leading kind of contemporary issues are really focusing on neuroscience, which really came out of this cognitive psychology viewpoint. The person we need to credit for cognitive psychology is definitely going to be one George Miller. My assumption is you guys have not heard of George Miller. He definitely has not, he's not one of those power names like you always hear about Freud, about Jung, Erikson. I know you've heard these names over and over again. They're really distinct and recognizable, but my guess is there hasn't been such emphasis on George Miller. But George Miller for sure is going to be considered kind of the father of cognitive psychology. Really the birth of cognitive psychology, it was around 1960. It came out of Harvard University, and historians really kind of credit the groundbreaking work of George Miller on his paper called Plans and the Structure of Behavior as really the birth that is cognitive psychology. So I hope you guys take a minute to really conceptualize and understand that these two fields are very different, but happening at the same time. If you guys have any questions or any concerns about this chapter, anything at all, I'm happy to help. I hope you have a good week. Bye, guys.